Salvador Dali's work was truly ahead of his time. With his long-lasting worldwide fame and easily recognizable works of art, it's no surprise he's one of the most iconic artists ever. But to some, Salvador Dalí was a mentally disturbed and bizarre artist, while to others he was a fake, a compulsive and manipulative liar who reached fame and success by creating a false persona. The problem here is that much of the literature on Dalí's supposed madness lacks support for these claims, because during his lifetime he went to extraordinary lengths to keep parts of his private life secret. It's not until running into Caroline Murphy's published article, The Link Between Artistic Creativity and Psychopathology, Salvador Dalí, that we get a much broader and clearer picture of Dalí's abnormal behaviors, thoughts, and personality. Caroline attempts to connect Dalí's artistic creativity and his abnormality by analyzing what we know about Dalí using theories from the schools of psychology and genetics. Caroline breaks down Dalí's behaviors and thoughts into sections, starting with hallucinations. All throughout his autobiography, The Secret Life, and The Surrealist Jester, we see recollections of his most earliest visions and hallucinations. In one instance, Dalí would imagine baby kangaroos drowning in their mother's pouch full of milk. Dalí was also observed talking to imaginary people on different occasions, and would incorporate these made-up characters into frequent episodes that he preferred to have over interacting with his peers. As Caroline puts it, Dalí became slightly obsessional about his psychic abnormality and tried to keep alive the hallucinations he had already experienced. Beginning in childhood and extending into his adulthood, Dalí developed various phobias and obsessions. He developed a phobia of blushing, which hindered his social development as a child, and by adulthood he was terrified of germs, resulting in isolation from family and friends out of fear that he would become severely ill and unable to continue his work. While he developed several other phobias and obsessions, perhaps his most notable obsession was his need for isolation. Whenever he returned to his homeland after a trip, he was known to isolate himself for months at a time. In The Secret Life, Dalí addresses his sexual orientation, claiming that he is indeed not a homosexual. As Caroline points out though, he was extremely troubled by his phobias of the female human body and genitalia. He even went so far as to say that if he were to make love to a woman, he would die. Dalí had a preference for transsexuals and boys, and refused to touch women or be touched by them. As a result, Dalí was extremely ashamed of his sexual fears, and even claimed that he was impotent and inadequate because of the size of his penis, which then only led to further isolation and loneliness. As a child and adult, Dalí was known for his emotional outbursts. In The Diary of a Genius, Dalí is quoted as having said, "He is the hero who revolts against paternal authority and conquers it," suggesting that he had full control of his own family. There are reports from his sister, Anna Maria, that describes young Dalí as having caused fear and anxiety in their parents, and that Dalí always got his way. And this was no different in his adult years. His sense of self was so high that he continually compared himself to saints and mystics, and from an early age, vowed that he would be destined for greatness. In 1960, he even declared himself a saint, stating, "I am the reincarnation of one of the greatest of all Spanish mystics, Saint John of the Cross." When asked in an interview with Hausman, "What is surrealism?" Dalí replied, "Surrealism is myself." From an early age, Dalí was attracted to dressing up and acting in disguises that resembled women. In The Secret Life, Dalí talks about dressing up in a king's costume and would stand in front of the mirror, all while he pushed my sexual parts back out of sight and squeezed them between my thighs so as to look as much as possible like a girl. Why Dalí was attracted to transvestism is unclear, but Caroline gives her own interpretation, claiming that it could have been a result of growing up in a household full of smothering women. All throughout his life, Dalí was unable to take care of himself. As a child, Dalí was kept under the close eye of his mother, who, like him, was also highly concerned and anxious about his health, to the extent that she attempted to keep him from playing outdoors as much as possible. This lack of self-reliance played out in his adult life. After his mother passed away, his wife Gala took her place as Dalí's main caretaker, responsible for all of his needs. All the while, Dalí simply followed her orders. Dalí had no desire for emotional connection with anyone. As a child, he felt that any connection with his peers would only hinder his progress, stating, "I did not want anyone to touch me, to talk to me, to disturb what was going on in my head." It's a miracle that his wife Gala would be the only one to truly get through Dalí's defenses, even when he was angry with her for wanting to control his life. But without Gala, he would not have amounted to his success. Dalí also had no remorse or empathy for his cruelty and manipulations towards others. Because of his status, he felt it okay to treat people as inferiors, and would only surround himself with the most high-status individuals and cliques in an effort to gain something from them. Once he got what he wanted from these individuals, he would purposefully end whatever relationship he had with them. This behavior even extended to his relationship with his own family, as he went further and further into isolation. But could Dalí have been predisposed to mental illness? According to Caroline, there is a possibility that he may have inherited his grandfather's psychological predisposition, which was also filled with mania and depression. To interpret Dalí's art and behavior, we first have to understand what attracted him to the Surrealist movement. The Surrealist movement aimed to change the world by shifting people's perspectives. Dalí was attracted to Surrealism's most shocking, revolting, and insulting aspects. When it comes to creative artists, society favors those bizarre people that deviate from the norm. The more unusual the artist, the greater the probability for success. Of course, one could argue that his abnormal personality was second nature to Dalí. In other words, that he could mend and mold his true self to fit the ideal personality of a surrealist and sell his image and work through this transformation. Dalí's obsession with Freud's teachings were the foundations and guides for his productions. Just as Freud discussed the illnesses of individuals, Dalí sought to portray, embed, and demonstrate these same illnesses in his artwork. At the very least, Dalí understood what it took to create and sell his character, and knew that if he were to be known as a true surrealist, he would have to embody the very illnesses he recreated in his work. But at what point would faking or playing as this character affect his mental state? Surely, to be as obsessed as Dalí was, it would be almost impossible if it didn't play a role in his deteriorating mental state. Caroline also suggests that Dalí's work and his mental state went hand in hand, and that his work affected his mental state and vice versa. His ability to create art was an opportunity for him to release his bizarre, perverted thoughts and built up tension and guilt. Dalí knew of no other or better way to express his thoughts. His art was his therapy and method for confronting his confessions and externalizing the chaos within. But as Caroline points out, Dalí's very public personality and outlandishness could have been the mask to cover his mental instability. Though Dalí himself would continuously claim that he experienced no illness, his behaviors would say otherwise.
Je suis fou du chocolat l'envers.
Dalí's attempts to be extravagant and abnormal were just the ingredients he needed to make those around him believe that he was just fishing for public attention and affection, and make them believe there was nothing deeper to understand about him. His use of alcohol and other drugs is still unclear, with reports on both sides claiming for and against their use. But as Dalí states, "I don't do drugs, I am drugs. Take me, I am the drug. Take me, I am hallucinogenic. Take that for what you will." There is no doubt that Dalí was an interesting individual with a highly unusual personality, and that he embodied many of the characteristics often seen with the most successful and creative visual artists and mental illness. What Caroline ultimately suggests is, regardless if Dalí did all this for show or not, it is difficult to label his grandiose ambitions, the writing of his self-obsessed autobiography, a life of showmanship, and the marriage to a woman who used, abused, and humiliated him as normal, in the way that we know it. In the end, we can't view Dalí's abnormality as bad or in a negative light. For if it weren't for his madness, Dalí would not have given us his extraordinary art that we have today. Thank you to all of you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Your support is highly appreciated, and we can't wait to keep creating this type of content for you. If you're interested in staying connected with us, or even reading further into the article used for this video, we'll have links here at the bottom for all of that. Thanks again.